What will happen in the second episode of the Amazing Digital Circus? Well, you better buckle in, because what I just found might actually change your entire perspective of the show. And let's just say it has something to do with Jax, which we're gonna get to in this video. But before we get to that, I have to talk about Kanger. This character is one of the main inhabitants of the circus, even if it doesn't seem so. In one of my videos, I proved that out of all the current inhabitants of the circus, Kanger is the one who has been there the longest, not including Kane, of course. Even in the pilot episode, we often notice that he is already starting to go crazy, and I think that this trend will continue in the second episode. I think that the loss of a loved one in the circus gives Kanger a very deep picture about what's going on around him. In my opinion, Kanger has known for a long time that it is possible to get out of this circus. I mean, there's no way he wouldn't have noticed all the exits that have popped up throughout the entire history of the circus. On the one hand, we can assume that they will appear at the will of the administrator, because it's theorized that Pomni is an administrator along with Kane, thanks to which she can easily create exits, but she just doesn't realize it yet. Or as in any digital system, in the Amazing Digital Circus, there could be a glitch that causes characters to randomly open exits to the real world instead of the virtual one. This brings us back to Kanger. In the new episode, I think there might be such a glitch, and Kanger will be a witness of it. He will, like Pomni in the pilot episode, lose consciousness and stay in the void. But as we know, even in a blacked out state, the character who has been in the void still remains absolutely aware of everything that has happened to them in the first place. Kane will get his notification on the Wacky Watch as usual, but the whole situation will have a stronger effect on Kanger, making him even more unstable. And now even Kanger will start talking about a way out. Although we all remember how he mocked Kaufmo at first, even though he knew a way out of this damned circus. With each new scene, Kanger will become more and more vulnerable and lost, which will eventually lead into Kanger's final descent into madness. And we all know what happens here next. Time will come and Kanger will disappear from the rest of the circus inhabitants. Then, similar to the situation with Kaufmo, his room will be filled with a bunch of strange drawings and inscriptions. And I'm sure that one of these drawings will be a sinister image of Kane, who this time is chasing Kanger instead of Kaufmo. Kanger will turn into a monster and Kane will put him into the basement where the rest of the abstracted inhabitants of the digital circus remain. And that, unfortunately, is gonna be the end of Kanger's story in the Amazing Digital Circus. But now we have to talk about Pomni if we want to know what can happen in the second episode. And I'm more than sure that despite all the failures in the pilot episode of the Digital Circus, Pomni will not give up on her attempts of finding a way out. She will most likely act casual at first, pretending that she likes everything in here and is not thinking about escaping. However, we already remember that Pomni started to have problems in the pilot episode and her mental state was not the best. And in the second episode, we will see the struggle between calm and panic. But with time, the panic will subside and Pomni will start to remember the unusual things that happened to her. Like the hand she was able to heal herself even though Ragatha said only Kane could do that. Or the exits that nobody sees, but only she sees them all the time. After some thought, Pomni will realize that she is the administrator and she can control the circus. Then her story with Ragatha begins. As a result of this, they realize that they can create exits and possibly escape the circus. They begin to deliberately create chaos so that all the monsters created by Kane cannot cope with what is going on, and Kane himself would have to intervene. At this point, Pomni and Ragatha would be able to steal Kane's Wacky Watch, and they will get the ability to disable the Wacky Watch notifications for void intrusion, allowing them to enter the void. But at some point, Kane will realize this and start chasing them. He will be able to get to them very easily, but with Pomni, it will not be so easy. And the very last moment when Pomni sees the VR headset, it will allow her to return to the real world, and she will be met by Kane. And this is the end of the second episode of the Amazing Digital Circus. But don't click off just yet, because now we are going to talk about my theory for what is going to happen in the second episode of the Amazing Digital Circus. Every time that I've watched the pilot episode, I kept thinking that Pomni and Kaufmo were somehow connected. I realized that some of the connections lead me to believe that Pomni and Kaufmo are the same person. Let's get to the bottom of this. In the beginning, we were supposed to meet Kaufmo, but for some unknown reason, he was not in the circus. And right after that, Pomni comes in. You may think that this is obvious to everyone, but look farther. The symbol of every circus always has been a clown. Sometimes it has been a jester or a harlequin, but the idea is the same every time. Kaufmo is a clown, but Pomni is the jester. Immediately after appearing in the digital circus, Pomni begins to see strange images, including a door that is the exit from the Amazing Digital Circus. Kaufmo is has also been saying all along that he sees some kind of exit and has been telling everyone else about it. But like Pomni, nobody believes him. The fact that Kane can see a way out is not surprising because he is AI and he is also the administrator of the circus, which means he is responsible for everything that happens. And since the circus is digital, no shit, Kane can create anything he wants in it, but no one else is allowed to. Even though Pomni is an administrator, all of the characters in the show have never seen or heard of an exit, which means that such an ability is only available to few, and it certainly won't be 2 circus inhabitants in a row. This, among other things, confirms my theory that Pomni and Kaufmo are the same person, but it's not over yet. It was seen that the monster that Kaufmo became first attacked Ragatha, although this monster initially came close to Pomni. The monster must have realized it messed up and was actually supposed to be attacking Ragatha instead of Pomni, so it recalibrated. But apparently, when creating the monster illusion, Kane reprograms them with the memory of the previous circus inhabitant who abstracted. This gives them instructions not to attack in any way, but just to pretend. But we will talk about these abstracted monsters more another day. Now we gotta get back to what is gonna happen in episode 2. Remember that Kaufmo was talking about exits to the circus, so he probably went inside like Pomni, and that desk is actually the place where Kaufmo moved into the circus. But unfortunately, that's where Kane was able to get Kaufmo, so he couldn't escape. And it was that desk that was the only witness to Kane destroying Kaufmo, and forcing him to be reborn as Pomni. But now to answer the question that you've all been waiting for, what will happen to Jax in the second episode? As it's been previously confirmed, the second episode will be about Jax. From the pilot, we remember that Jax is a complete jerk to everyone in the circus, and in the second episode, we will still be introduced to Jax as the anti-hero who has absolutely no interest in the lives and mental states of the rest of the circus. And I think he's going to bully everybody in this episode. But at some point, he will realize that some characters should not behave that way, and he will start to correct his mistakes little by little. But it will not take long, because if you live your whole life with one way of thinking in your head, it's very hard to change to another. And it seems to me that in the next episode, Jax will be left all alone, because after his so-called jokes, hardly anyone will want to communicate with him, and Jax might close in on himself, or on the contrary, go into a new level because he is so ready to do anything to be noticed. So because of this, I think it is pretty likely that Jax actually could abstract in the next episode. But as we know, it is very possible that the creators are going to do a huge twist on how the series is going to unfold in episode 2. But it's very hard to say if the creators would want to do this, because Jax is one of the community's favorite characters, and a lot of people would probably stop watching if they removed Jax as a character. So it's unlikely that we will be seeing any serious twists in Jax's storyline. But we're gonna have to wait until we have more information if we want to know if anything will happen for sure. So those are my theories on what's going to happen in episode 2 of The Amazing Digital Circus. Click on this video right here if you want to know more.